What is up, you guys? It is Drew and we're back with another video. Today we are going to be installing this nice turbine style air filter cold air intake on this 2005 Harley Davidson Sportster. Alright, so we're going to be taking off this air filter right here and replacing it. So it's just going to need 2 bolts right there, some hex bolts or hex Allen keys. And once you get rid of those, there's going to be 2 sockets there, or 2 bolts that you're going to need a deep socket for. And once you take that off, the whole filter and assembly will come off in order to replace it with this brand new air filter, this turbine style air filter. So it just go on just like that. It'll actually be a pretty easy install. Here's the bracket. Still has all the same mounting bolts with the breather bolts, so everything will, all the blow-by gases from the cylinder heads will just flow back into the intake, just for emission standards and everything like that. Here, just forgot to say, you do need a Torx bit right here for these 3 bolts right there, but after that it will just be the 2 bolts there where you're gonna need a deep socket, and the whole assembly will come off after that. Just to remove these 2 bolts, you will need, I believe, a 5/8 wrench, or no, 9/16 deep socket, and that will remove your whole assembly. For me right here, I have the carbureted version, so it might be a little different for you if you do have a newer model where it has fuel injection instead of a carburetor. So if you do put on this filter, you will probably need to tune it or dyno tune it. For me, it's gonna take a little while, but I'm just gonna have to adjust the whole carburetor just to insert a little more fuel, just because it is receiving a little more air now. So just to combat that, I will need to adjust the air to fuel ratio on the carburetor, but that is just something to keep in mind when installing a cold air intake or an open air filter on your Harley Davidson. Next step, what you wanna do is just grab the whole backing plate or the mounting point, and you just wanna grab the breather bolts and the spacer bracket that comes included with this. So it's just gonna go right there like that. So you just want to do this nice and loose, have it individual, line it up, and then put the bolt through on that hole right there. Just a good idea that you might want to do is, since this air cleaner is mounted on the engine and it is a high vibrational point, you might want to put some strength thread locker on the bolts right here, on the mounting bolts and breather bolts, just so it doesn't shake itself out, just so you don't want this to ever fall off on you or anything like that. Now once you tighten up these, you just want to put these little breather tube gasket or rubber, I'm not sure what they're called, but basically it just brings in all the flow from the breather bolts back into the intake, just for emission standards and to help keep all the oil that comes from the blow-by from the top of the cylinder heads clean off of your intake, and it just flows it back straight into there. Now once you're done with that, let's just grab this backing plate here. Now that will just help close that in and settle it in. So you just want to grab these 3 bolts here once you put the backing plate on to the breather bolt, and just screw it in there just so it holds the carburetor in place. And just want to make sure you put a little bit of thread locker on each one of these bolts, just because it is another mounting point, except now it's just on the carburetor. From right here, I just have the air filter placed on. It wasn't that hard, but I only have this bolt and this bolt holding the air filter. Now what I'm going to do is just grab the spacers, put a little bit of thread locker on this bolt and tighten it up. And once I got all this one, that one, and that one, these 3, then I'll undo these and do the same process. Now when finally putting all these bolts in, just make sure you do put the thread locker on at least the tip, and now you could start to torque it down, and just want to go in like a star pattern. I mean, it fits perfect, just so you evenly put pressure on the air filter, and just so you don't mess up anything like that. But after that, the whole installation is pretty much complete. Now like I said, if you do have a fuel injected motorcycle, you will probably need to dyno tune it, just because now you're going to be running an even more lean mixture. But if you are running with a carburetor, you just will need to tune it through the carburetor, and it will take a couple of days, maybe 2 or 3 days, but after that you should be good to go. And once you're complete, now you just want to tune it, or dyno tune it, or however you're going to tune it, whether if it's fuel injection or carbureted. But you just want to tune it. It's not necessary, but if you do want it to run as efficient as possible and get as much power out of your engine as possible, you do want to tune it. Like I said, also run efficiently as possible. With the cold air intake or open filter style intake, you will be able to run more horsepower with it, but you do want to tune it more just so your engine is running right, because from the factory they're already running lean just because of emission standards and all that good stuff. Well, actually bad stuff, but the bike is already running pretty lean, so now adding an open air filter will just make it run even more lean. So that's not what you want. So you just want to make sure you add a little more fuel, whether you dyno tune it or adjust it through a carburetor. You just want to tune it as soon as possible, but it is not necessary. But like I said, if you do want it to run right, you should probably dyno tune it. If you guys are enjoying the content, make sure you guys like and subscribe. And it is Drew, and I'll see you next time. Peace.